Ever since I started rock climbing, I wanted to be the best. I'm sort of like the Ash Ketchum of indoor bouldering. I want to catch them all, and what I'm catching is finish holds. And you know what they say, if you want to be the best, you gotta train like the best, which is why I decided to study Tomoa Narasaki's indoor bouldering to learn to dyno and climb like the best. Now I've already been training dynos for a while. I'm pretty good at dynos. I would say that Tomoa and I, pretty equal in dynos. I would say, we're pretty fierce competitors in that regard. But what I really wanted to learn from him was just general indoor bouldering techniques. So after extensively studying Tomoa's climbing style, I found a few things that he does a little bit differently that make him such an explosive and dynamic boulderer. First up is a pretty unique move that Tomoa is known for, which in Japan they call the pappu and swapu, or the pop and swap. Now I hate hand swaps. It's my least favorite move in rock climbing by a long shot. If you tell me that there's a piano match on a boulder, I'm not doing that boulder. When did boulders stop being all jugs in a ladder formation? Probably around V1. So after finding a pretty good boulder with 2 hand swaps in it, I decided to employ the pop and swap technique. So the pop and swap definitely works. The problem is, it's definitely not any easier than a regular hand swap. It's also one of those moves that seems like it's probably a little bit easier when you're only 120 pounds. It's not exactly like a big guy move. So after a few failed attempts with the pop and swap, I decided to re-employ the regular hand swap, which I found to be much easier. So the pop and swap wasn't really for me. It wasn't really a move that fit my build very much. You have to remember, Tomoa is only 5'7", which is like average height for a male. I'm about 6 foot, so I'm a little on the taller end. I'm closer in height to somebody like Adamandra, right? He's only like an inch taller than me, and that's probably all neck. But the purpose of this exercise wasn't to climb like the best outdoor climber of all time. It was to climb like the best indoor climber of all time. Because we all know indoor's the real climbing, right? Like we were here first, they copied us. Which leads me to the next thing I noticed about Tomoa's climbing, which is committing to throws. Now I've always looked at throws as a really desperate move, the last refuge of the cowardly and the weak. But as you start climbing harder and harder grades, you start to realize that throws just become an integral part of sending a lot of boulders. Now in Tomoa's case, he'll throw to basically anything. He employs it as one of the signature moves in his deck. So I decided to try some boulders with some reachy moves that I would typically static. But the goal here was to throw as much as possible, especially on moves where I know Tomoa would throw. Now this can definitely be pretty hard to get used to because some moves you're throwing to can be to really small crimps or really like awkward slopers, but it's kind of the same mindset as a dyno. You just got to commit to it and get used to the feeling. So after getting a good amount of practice on throwing in, I decided to move on to the next thing that Tomoa is really good at, which is cutting feet. Now cutting feet's usually like the last thing you want to do in climbing. Like it's not horrible, but it's not something you want to be happening all the time. That's usually the first indicator that somebody's new at climbing is when they cut feet all the time. But in Tomoa's case, cutting feet is actually part of the plan. You see, for Tomoa, feet are just for jumping.
Oh, how has he made this work? He's got the toe in, matches on the top hole. That was a true gritty battle to the end.
Tomoa employs a classic tree frog climbing technique. So I decided to try some more boulders with Tomoa's signature hands are for climbing, feet are for jumping technique.
Whew, nice.
Once I put both of these tactics together, it started to feel a lot more natural to just kind of jump and throw to holds. But cutting feet and quickly and accurately placing them back on the wall definitely takes a little bit of time to get used to. So after a couple days of training these new techniques, I decided to try them on some harder boulders that are at the top of my skill level. First up was a V7 boulder that I had already done in the past that had multiple pretty big throws in it already. So the plan was to go into it with the mindset of throwing and cutting feet without worrying about it. So after feeling pretty confident on the V7, I decided to move up one grade to a V8. And not only was this a V8, but it was overhang, which is by far my weakest climbing style. And I gotta tell you, I noticed a much bigger difference on this boulder. Going into this boulder planning on just throwing and cutting feet and doing big moves definitely made it way easier. I don't care how much I train, I'm always gonna hate heel hooks. So overall, I think the training went pretty well. I think it's a pretty good idea to learn from the best. You know, it's a tried and true method. Train like the best if you wanna be the best. And in this case, it definitely did help. And if all goes according to plan and I keep up my training, then next time you guys will see me, I'll be in the Olympics.